spiritual journey is a journey from here to here, because awareness, consciousness, presence, truth, reality is eternal. It is the eternal presence that you are, that I am. This presence, which is the presence of the self, the presence of what, God in religious terms, is not a presence that comes and goes. At the mind level, we experience a world, we experience a body, we experience thoughts and sensations. These experiences appear and disappear out of the aware presence that hears these words. It is the aware presence that hears these words, that is completely free of the hearing, completely free of what is being experienced. That is the reality of consciousness. And the reality of consciousness is what you are. It is your reality, it's the reality of the self, the reality of presence. In our conditioned state, which I refer to as ignorance, meaning believing that I am a man or a woman, the experience of consciousness is veiled. It is veiled by the belief structure that I am an event, that I, meaning I as consciousness, I always, when I say I, am always referring to consciousness. When I address you, it is consciousness that is addressing consciousness. But the impression that consciousness, that I as consciousness is a mortal body, gets the mind confused, and in this confusion there is unhappiness, and there is the quest to become whole. So if you have any questions, anything you want to explore, we can explore together rather than me talking about presence and consciousness, and we can be together in whatever questions that you want to explore. There are a couple of topics that have been brought to my attention over the past week that I want to talk about for a few minutes, and then we can go to whatever questions you may have. One of the topics is about the contemplation of consciousness. So in the spiritual exploration, contemplation, there is a revelation, that an initial revelation, that what I am is not a body-mind, that I am consciousness. This is, I refer to that as an enlightenment experience, or a glimpse, a glimpse into reality, a glimpse into truth. Through that glimpse, you know undoubtedly, without any doubt, beyond any doubt, that you are not a man or a woman, that you are something beyond all of that, much larger than the body-mind experience. This initial enlightenment or glimpse into truth, into your true nature, is the introduction to the contemplation of consciousness. It is important not to confuse this experience. It's an experience, but it's actually a non-experience. I use the term experience with quotation marks, because usually the term experience refers to a mind experience, an experience that is at the thought or at the body level or at the feeling level or at the perceptual level. This experience of enlightenment is actually a non-experience, because in that non-experience, the mind is completely absent. The mind is actually perceived, and it is not a mind experience. It is beyond the mind. It cuts right through the mind structures. But this enlightenment, this glimpse into our true nature, into truth, is just the introduction to the contemplation of truth, the contemplation of the self. It is a crucial introduction, because without it, the contemplation has not even started. The next phase of the contemplation of consciousness is to contemplate what is the nature of consciousness. And the contemplation, now that you know yourself to be consciousness, the gaze is no longer onto the world, body, mind. It is looking within. It is an inner contemplation of what are the qualities of consciousness. And in time, with the proper contemplation, the nature of consciousness reveals itself, reveals its various facets, and in that in that revelation, the leftover structures, the leftover me structures, the leftover structures of self-identification, of personal identification, dissolve, and you no longer experience the world, body, mind from a personal perspective. There is a time that comes where your experience of the world, body, mind is no longer personal. It's just the personal impression goes on diminishing in both in intensity, in size, and in frequency, until it no longer is on board. So this is sort of a little schematic, very brief schematic of the spiritual journey. Towards the end of your understanding of consciousness, there comes a point where your experience of freedom and bliss and peace and happiness is no longer wavering. It is no longer being affected by any world, body, or mind event. So we can explore more of this in whatever questions you may have. The other topic that I wanted to sort of briefly brush over is the topic of love. Personal love is a misnomer in love, when there is the impression of personhood, there are conditions. There are subtle and maybe not so subtle conditions that have been inherited and that have been cultivated in the body-mind. And when love is personal, it is limited by the personal impressions that have been gathered and that arise in the relationship as you are interacting in the relationship. But when you're experiencing love, you're not experiencing a me or another. You're experiencing a divine presence. You somehow, you go straight to God. One of the ways of going straight to God is through the heart, is through love. It's a non-mind, non-experience. It's beyond the mind, beyond experiences. Love is sort of God whispering, God inhabiting you and filling you with grace and filling you with just tremendous joy and bliss. And when love is divine, when love is true, when love is not infected by the personal impression, there is a complete freedom that accompanies love. It's a shared freedom, a freedom that you experience in your being, and sort of like an infinite presence. And in this infinite presence, the other is right there with you. It's a vibration. It's a vibrational connection, whereas like in two waves are one. They're recognizing themselves as one. It's not at the mental level. It's beyond the mental. And it's important to recognize that love goes beyond the mind, because the mind comes back on board and wants to appropriate love, wants to personalize, wants to create a me and another and create a whole story about love. But love is beyond any story, beyond any mind activities. Now, in a relationship, of course, the mind is on board. But when there is love and the recognition of the love, the mind is a celebratory tool to celebrate God, to celebrate love in various forms. Celebrate love in conversations. We celebrate love in love making. We celebrate love in sharing our contemplation, in contemplating together. We celebrate love in the stillness, in the presence. That's the highest form of celebration of love, is in the presence, in the recognition, in the stillness, in the recognition of yourself. When you recognize yourself, you recognize the other as yourself. So the other and you are merged as one. And that's the beauty of love. And from that perspective, one could use the term it's impersonal, that love is impersonal, or it's a cosmic love, it's a divine love. And it's very beautiful. And there are no time conditions in such love. There isn't the world of expectation. Instead, there is a contemplation. We're interested in looking at whenever something arises, whenever a thought arises that wants to personalize the impersonal. There is an interest in that, says, hey, what is going on here? That's not what is real. What is real is the freedom and the shared space and the openness and the innocence and the willingness to listen and the willingness to feel whatever is going on without personalizing it. It's very crucial to experience whatever is unfolding in the body-mind without personalizing it. You can find your ways around that. It's your own contemplation, it's your own exploration. But as soon as you personalize whatever is arising, you're bringing the limited self on board, and you're separating yourself from the other. And there is lots of pain and suffering in that. So if there are any questions. Ananda writes, I guess you can all look at the chat. There's an echo. I wonder about the viability of being actually in love with two women. This is the romantic, special feeling that in our culture is usually reserved for only one other. You see, Ananda, love is given by God, and if it's given freely in a relationship with two women, two men, three men and two women, whatever, that doesn't matter. What really matters is the contemplation, is to love correctly, to love from the right place, to love from an impersonal place, to love from presence, to recognize that love is presence, and it's not a personal presence, because presence is not contained in any person. You could say that the person or the personal impression arise in presence, in the openness, in this open space of presence. When I talk about the open space of presence, I'm talking about the open space of presence that right now hears these words. It's a borderless presence, and it's recognized, and it recognizes itself, because the recognition itself of the open space that perceives this perception, that recognition itself is an open recognition, is a borderless recognition. So what really matters in love is to recognize the tenderness and the sweetness of presence that is not grabbing at anything, that is not interested in arguing with anything, that loves the love, that loves the truth, the sincerity, and that invites, it's an open invitation to come to presence and to be in presence together. And when we are in presence together, there isn't a you and a me. It's just there is just beauty. It's just sweetness and friendship.
Great. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is great.
There's that bit of what I would call personal excitement in the rapport that happens with another person.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
so to have that be included in the space,
yeah, absolutely.
That's the
absolutely.
and not become a freight train.
Yeah.
It seems like the thing.
Yeah. You know, the excitement at the body level, it's part of the expression, but it's important that there is a recognition that this excitement is also a gift from God, so that there wouldn't be any narrowing around this excitement and the sense or the feeling that I must have that or else.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's not a pursuit of the excitement, it is a celebration of the excitement, and there is a freedom around the celebration. It can move and go in any way it wants, and it can expand, and sometimes it's just barely there. It varies, but there is a freedom around it. So the whole experience unfolds in the listening space, in a space of stillness and excitement. So, you know, when you're coming from stillness, then there is a celebration of the excitement because there is nothing in the way. There isn't.
Yes. No complications, unnecessary complications.
Right. And of course, like whenever there are complications that arise, then it's really important to not to push any agenda, but to sort of, pause and explore what's going on. Because the unhappiness, meaning the complications or the confusion, are an important message that is inviting you to look, to contemplate. And the contemplation usually is about this me tendency, this personal tendency that that perceives from a sense of lack and perceives a need, sort of an artificial need, a personal desire that it perceives that it must have or else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's party pooper.
That fuels the complications.
Yeah, right.
This is such a beautiful view of being in this world. And
it's dynamic too, because it's sort of a moment by moment. There is the open space of presence, and whatever is coming on board is experienced in the transparency of presence. So the transparency of presence is at the body level. There are messages that the body, through sensations, expresses itself.
Mm-hmm.
It expresses itself as the openness, as the relaxation, as the happiness, or as various contractions. Mm-hmm. So when the contractions come on board, because there is an openness and an interest, there is a noticing of that.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really lovely about contractions is that sometimes there is a me impression, like a personal impression, a sense of personal sense of lack or a personal sense of danger, that contracts the body out of its tendency to sort of protect itself.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes, even in the absence of that, you pick up a contraction from the field.
Mm.
And so you look at that. Initially, it might seem to be, a me contraction, but when you look closer, you find that, oh wait, there isn't really a me position right now, and yet there is a contraction that you pick up from the field.
Uh-huh.
That comes with the transparency, as the body mind becomes more and more transparent, it becomes more and more sonar, sort of. It picks up, it picks up what's in the field, but it doesn't keep it. It just flows through. It's like a black hole where the world issues come to dissolve. Anyways, I'm going on a tangent.
Yeah, beautiful. That's it's all salient to me in this. Last night at 2 a.m, I was very hungry. I was out doing my work, and I said Denny's I think is the best quality that I can find. Mm-hmm. Denny's restaurant.
Yes.
But I went in, and the vibe in there was the vibration in there was so unsuitable to me. Mm-hmm. That I just thought, you know what? I can just leave. Mm-hmm. I can just drive home and find something to eat.
Right.
And but there was a residue of, oh my gosh, this is what a low end world. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm in. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it could be a good place for you to contemplate that whatever appears doesn't touch you.
Yes. And contemplate that whether staying or going.
Yeah, I mean, I would leave also, but anyways, it can go either way. But yeah, that you are untouched. What you are is the perceiver. Let's say you perceive this space, you perceive this vibration, you perceive this sensation, you perceive this perception. Mm-hmm. but you're not a personal character. You're not an event that is affected by other events. Consciousness is unmoved by its dreams. It dreams all dreams, so it's dreaming this beautiful dream right now. But it doesn't want anything. It's not seeking anything. It's not missing anything. It's not needing anything. There are at the body-mind level, meaning in the field, there are certain relationships. At a certain temperature, water freezes. At a certain temperature, it boils. Given certain conditions, the human body needs to eat, or needs to hydrate. Under certain circumstances, a certain seed requires a certain moisture and a certain nutrient and a certain sunlight in order to sprout and become a tree or a plant or a flower or to bloom. So these are relationships and conditions in the world body mind. They're mechanical, they're like sort of they're at the phenomenal level. They're at the atom, the dance of the atoms and the molecules and the photons and so on. But you as consciousness, when you dream you're swimming, you don't wake up that you're wet. You're untouched by. That's an important understanding. It's an important contemplation. That whatever you're experiencing, whatever emotions or thoughts or feelings that you're experiencing, and that make you feel, oh my God, look what's happening to me. There is nothing happening to you. You're mistaking yourself to be a man or a woman, and so because of that mistaken identification, you think and you feel that something is happening to you, while in fact nothing is happening to you as consciousness. So this is why it's important to contemplate what am I? Am I a mortal body-mind experience, or am I experiencing a world body-mind? Am I the experience of the body? Am I a bodily sensation, or am I the experiencer of the body sensation? That's the first contemplation, is for you to realize that you are the experiencer of all experiences, and that you are untouched by the experiences. And of course, the second part of the contemplation is to realize that all these experiences are made out of you, that all your dreams are made out of you. The pink elephant that you dream of at night is made out of you. The lion that's chasing you in your dream is made out of you. Both the lion and the young boy running, or if you're swimming in a beautiful lake, that both the lake and the person that's swimming are made out of you. So all experiences, all thoughts, sensations, perceptions are made out of you. They're intimately made out of you. But you are not made out of them. You're not made out of them. So the tree is made out of you, but you're not made out of a tree. And that what you truly are as consciousness, you dream all dreams, but you do not need the dream. You do not need the dream to know yourself. That's an important contemplation. That you, as consciousness, do not need the world, body, mind in order to know yourself. You know yourself directly.
Right. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yes. Simply by going directly to I am. Am I? The question, am I, or am I aware, goes directly. You don't need to think about it. You go directly to consciousness knowing itself. Yes, I am. Yes, I am aware.
Yes.
But the male, female, boy, son, father, engineer, daughter, mother, all of that is not even on board. It's a direct, am I aware? Yes, of course I am aware. Am I perceiving these perceptions? Yes, I am. I am. Do I know that I am? Yes, I know that I am. That is a direct consciousness knowing itself directly without having to go through the world, body, mind. Yes, thank you for your question, Ananda.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
Hi, Magdi, this is Shanti.
Hello, Shanti. Hello.
You were talking about these phases of kind of waking up.
Yes.
And the first one was the recognition that we are not we.
Yes.
That I'm not the body.
Mm-hmm.
What I perceive is like there is a recognition of that, but in daily life, sort of, it's kind of like there is awareness. But in short reactions, sometimes there's this contraction that shows that you still feel that you are somebody that could be hurt or could be can happen to you. How can we go about it?
Yes, yes. It's really important, Shanti, that you be interested. Just interested by what is happening. Not trying to become anything or to arrive at any destination, because you already are the destination. You already are awareness. You already are the pure presence. You already are the borderless aware presence. So in your daily life, as certain events occur where you become Shanti, feeling threatened or feeling diminished or feeling lacking something, just remain interested, because it's via your interest that there can be an understanding, and then the understanding can deepen, and that there can be a ripening of your contemplation.
When you say remain interested, you mean observing what is happening, or?
Yes, but there are a variety of tools that are available to you. So yes, you're available for what is happening, but it's not just a neutral, blank witnessing. When you're interested in somebody, you want to know a lot of things about them. You want to know where they live, how they function, what are their habits, what they like to eat, where they like to travel, on what side of the bed they sleep, and you want to know what kind of clothes they like to wear, or what what amuses them. So when you're interested, it's not just a blank witnessing. There is an exploration. So when a contraction arises, so be interested in what is the process of the contraction. And I think you're already pretty clear that whenever there is a contraction, somehow there is the old pattern of identification that I am Shanti, I am this woman, I am this friend, this sister, this whatever. There is an identification with a me, and there is a history of habits, of reactive habits. So when the reaction is occurring, well, usually there isn't much to do. And it's really not a big deal. But that's not the end of the game. Because at some point, you recognize something. You recognize, oh, gee, I'm being reactive. And at that moment, there is a moment of awareness. There is, when you say, I am being reactive, although you imagine yourself to be Shanti, the I is the I of consciousness. So there is something that is perceived. There is consciousness is on board, looking at what has happened. And when you ask yourself, well, what's happened here? What happened? Without going back into, oh yeah, well, it happened because he did this or she did that, or she should have acted this way, without going further down into the me and you story, but just to be like interested, what really happened? When you ask this question, you're inviting a different sort of interest. You're no longer interested in maintaining the story, meaning the contraction. You're interested in truth. So, but it's really important that your interest be pure, meaning that it is not attempting to make you a better you. You're just interested because something is on board, something just unfolded. And so you look at it, and you will recognize a variety of things. It depends. Most likely you will recognize that, okay, the old tendency of me and the other got triggered. Big deal. So what? Because it gets triggered and a minute later it's gone. Isn't that your experience?
Yes, it's true.
Right. So big deal. You don't need to carry it. You don't need to carry it. You could say, okay, fine. A moment of separate self happened. A moment of me and the other happened. And now I can let it go.
Okay. It's kind of like the same thing. It's just accepting what is in the moment. And
well, yeah, I mean, if you are in complete, let's say, surrender, or in complete presence, you recognize that everything is perfect as it is. Everything is God's image. And so there is just the celebration and the contemplation of the divine. So yes, you let go. You let go of time. You don't maintain me in time, or the other in time, because the separate self-impression exists in thought, and thought is where time is, the past memory, the thought and the future. Time exists in thought, and the me impression is maintained in thought. And as soon as you let go of you in time, you come to presence. And the you in presence is the you right now that hears these words, is an open space of presence. And you can relax in that space of presence, because the space of presence is already relaxed and it's blissful. There is a bliss and peace and relaxation. And so the more you visit peace and presence and relaxation, the more you visit that space, the more it becomes your It's like in your house, you know. There is a couch that you sit in it more often than the other couch. You know, you sit in it and you adjust it. You by the window, you have a beautiful view, and slowly, it it becomes the place, your favorite place in the house. So in the same way, like the more you recognize presence, meaning the presence, the open, borderless presence that hears these words right now, the more it will be your default state. Mm-hmm. So one of the issues we have in the world is that when we feel a contraction, we add to it a personal judgment.
Yeah.
And the personal judgment sort of digs it deeper. It leaves a trace of bad me, poor me, I'm not progressing. It sort of feeds the separate self. Mm-hmm. So it's important to realize that whatever is arising for you is arising for you to contemplate. Mm-hmm. And also, you will find that as a truth lover, when you are in the world, you will find situations that will trigger the me impression. The contraction will trigger the contraction in the body-mind, but only to be released. Mm. And it is released when you offer it to the space. Mm. But it is maintained when you add onto it a personal evaluation, mm-hmm. a personal judgment, or I should have, I shouldn't have, he should have, she shouldn't have. But when you allow it to arise and you offer it to the space, you say, oh, beautiful, look at this releasing, look at this remaining remnants. There are more and more subtle, there are subtle me identification at the feeling level. Mm-hmm. And these identifications at the feeling level are best released in relationships in the world, at work, on the bus, at the store, whatever, in relationships. Mm-hmm. That's when they get sort of triggered out of you. Mm-hmm. So if you can welcome that friend that made a promise and did not honor it, or welcome that family member who disappointed you, or welcome that student who did not recognize your efforts to welcome that, because it's through those situations that the remaining me tendencies are allowed to arise and to be released in the space of contemplation, the space of openness. Mm.
That's beautiful.
And one more thing about feeling a contraction in the in the world, in relationships, at work, or throughout your life. As I was mentioning previously to Ananda, that also because as we become more and more recognizing ourselves as consciousness, because consciousness is borderless, has no borders, you start picking up vibrations in the space that are not yours, meaning they're not arising from from Vidya believing herself to be a woman. They're not arising from an identification, a local identification. It's just something that's arising in the space. But irrespective, once you release that, meaning you perceive it and you perceive the infinite space that's around it. You don't personalize it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's beautiful because it's a different way of seeing it. It's kind of welcoming it instead of rejecting it.
Oh yeah, no. Rejection reinforces the me, the pushing and pulling impression.
Mm-hmm.
No.
You just mentioned also something that sounds very interesting. You're making a connection with time.
Mm-hmm.
The time and the impressions are kind of one and together.
The time and the me impression.
The me impression, yeah.
Yes, the separate self exists in thought, and thought is time.
Is time. Okay.
So it's me in time. There's a great amount of suffering that occurs via the impression of time, that I exist in time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So if you look at your experience of time, it's always you who is experiencing time. You don't experience yourself in time, you experience time. For example, you experience at the phenomenal level, you experience daylight, and then the afternoon, and then the nighttime. So that's sort of the phenomenal event of what we refer to as the weather and time. But you experience that, but you're not, the experience is in you, you are not in the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So like right now, you're perceiving this perception. So the perception is in you.
Mm-hmm.
You are not inside the perception.
Mm-hmm.
The perception is within you.
Yes.
So time, the impression of time, like for example, you're thinking about tomorrow at 4 o'clock you have an appointment with a friend, or you have a yoga class at 6 p.m. That's a thought about time, yes?
Uh-huh.
So that thought about time is arising in you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So the time, the thought of time arises in you.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes you might feel, for example, I am late for a meeting. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
So you're experiencing what we refer to as the pressure of time, because let's say you have an appointment at 4 o'clock, but it's 3 o'clock and you are still 2 hours away, so you're going to be late to your meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're experiencing in your body, maybe in your belly or in your face, or various ways, but at the body level you're experiencing a sense of being late, running out of time.
Mm-hmm.
That experience is a bodily sensation.
Yes.
And it's arising to you, in you. You perceive the sensation.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right. So you're not inside the sensation of time. The sensation of time is sort of inside of you, yes?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So in that way, when you're experiencing time as something that is arising in you, inside of you, let's say, you're experiencing something, but you are free of it.
Uh-huh.
Like, for example, you're looking at a lake or you're looking at a tree. The image of the lake is appearing in you,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or the image of the tree is appearing sort of inside of you. You're perceiving that, but you're not inside the image.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you're free of the image.
Yes. Yes.
So
I understand now.
right. So time in an actual way, in an actual meaning, you experience time, but you are free
Oh.
of time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This does not mean, Vidya, that you would not pick up the phone and call your friend and say, okay, listen, I'm really sorry. I'm going to be an hour late. I apologize. Do you want to reschedule, or would you like to wait? Or this. But even when you do that, you're still free of what you're experiencing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Which is, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that I never saw time as time is the same as any other thing, but I never thought about time like that.
Yes, because we usually experience ourselves in time as if we exist in time.
Mm-hmm.
For example, we experience that we are aging.
Mm-hmm.
It's because we experience ourselves as we are occurring in time. But the reality is that time occurs in me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't occur in time.
Mm-hmm.
Time occurs in me.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes it's also very relative. Like sometimes in your dream, you dream like you were 12 years old, and you went and you spent 10 years with your aunt, and then 6 years later you went to Switzerland, and then when you were 40 you went to Mexico, and when you were 60 years old you lived by a beautiful house with some really nice friends, and then you wake up,
Mm-hmm.
but you just experienced 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole experience was in you. You didn't when you wake up, you're not affected by those 60 years.
Yes. Yeah, that's a nice analogy.
So when we experience ourselves like we are growing old, that's just an impression, because consciousness, what truly hears these words right now, is not in time and is not affected by the impressions of time that arise in it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we refer to consciousness as eternal, that I am eternal.
Yes.
There's a freedom. So eternity is free from time,
Mm-hmm.
because eternity is timeless.
Mm-hmm.
This freedom is the freedom of eternity, which is freedom from the thought, the time impression, which is a result of thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then the infinity, meaning the borderless quality of consciousness, is a freedom from space.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah.
This consciousness is not contained in any space. Space, like for example, the space of this room appears to you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not appearing inside the space. If you look at your room right now, this image of the room is appearing to you. It's like inside of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like the self is, I mean, the self contains everything, so it cannot depend on anything. I mean, it's not.
Yes, right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's very subtle, huh? Because time, I think, is as subtle as the thing that we were talking about before, which is that we are not this individual, this separate being. And time is as subtle as understanding that too. Like for me, it's like something's doing click inside. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome. Like sometimes when we're having a really wonderful time, Vidya,
Mm-hmm.
2 hours can go by. It feels like 10 minutes.
Yes, yes.
I did an interview that was an hour, and when the fellow told me, "Oh, the interview is over," I was surprised. I thought it was maybe 10 minutes.
Yes.
I said, "Yeah," and then I looked at the watch and said, "Oh, yeah, an hour."
That has that. Thank you so much.
Sorry. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you,
Okay, Vidya. Beautiful. Nice to talk to you.
thank you, thank you, thank you.
So if there are any questions.
I just want to say thank you for taking the time to meet with us and to respond our questions and to be so open for us to be here and
Yes, yes.
feel lots of gratitude. So thank you so much.
Okay, Vidya, thank you. Okay, well, so if there are no questions, I thank you for your love and for your friendship, and we'll see you next week, okay? Be well, be happy.
Thank you.
Thank you all.